clap. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Twins Talk Tech, episode 31. And this week, we're going to talk about Brent's new iPad. I don't even know the name. 2018 iPad, I think is all they call it. Is that right?
Well, yeah,
I think that's pretty much it.
Mine. Well, we'll get into it. Go ahead.
Okay. Episode 30 is going to be posted soon. Of course, if you're watching this, that's already up online. There was a small little blurb about that. That's why I mentioned it. And now I can't remember why I mentioned it. Something having to do with the editing portion that seemed pretty easy. But I don't know. Hopefully it'll hit me and I'll maybe remember it later. I've been using the Surface Pro to edit. And that's kind of why I wanted to ask you about this, the iPad, the 2018 iPad that supports the use of the pencil. You've had the iPad Pro, so I was curious of the difference between the two. And that's because I have the Surface Pro 3 as well as the Surface Book 2, and they both support the pen. Matter of fact, I just used the same pen on both, and I can see some minor differences. Obviously, they're two different form factors, so those are big differences. But when it comes to the pen use and things like that, I can see some minor improvements. I wouldn't dare say huge improvements. I mean, Microsoft might, but I don't. I don't see any huge improvements, but I'm also not an artist. So anything I do is more photo retouching or something like that. I'm not drawing from scratch and all that good stuff. And so that's kind of why I wanted to ask you this from your perspective. You mentioned Brendt did a little write-up, which was nice, about time, about some of the things he wanted to mention. And towards the beginning, he says that there's plenty of comparison videos online. And I think that's true. And I think that's good. I'm glad that there are. But the reason I wanted to get your input is because sometimes these reviews are just that. They're reviews by people who, their life is just reviewing technology. So it doesn't necessarily have a part of their life. It's not filling a certain role or fulfilling a certain role. So therefore their reviews, really might not be specific to someone who's actually going to be using the device. You know what I mean? So with that, let's kick it on over to Brent. I should say, that arm doesn't, whatever, you're over there. What do you think? What's, differences, things that are the same? Would you recommend this instead of someone getting a Pro? Things like that.
Yeah, all of the above, actually, if that makes any sense.
No.
So out of my list, I have, no, it doesn't make sense?
It doesn't.
Well, let me clarify, maybe by the end it will. So I have, on my list, I have both, so the things that apply to both. And there's a lot more that are on my list. Are you holding it up? I have the 2018 iPad, which is the lower cost one, and then the iPad Pro. Right. Pardon me. Hopefully I can talk through all this. I've been ill this week, so
I thought you sounded
we'll see.
A little more manly than normal, which is nice.
A little more manly than normal, yes, very manly today. So for the both part, obviously the pencil support, and that's a big part of this. I would not have purchased. I don't think I would have purchased this iPad, the 2018 iPad, if it didn't have the pencil support. It's not. I wasn't holding out for it necessarily. It just showed up with pencil support. That was the rumors also regarding it, but and then they didn't raise the price. I thought if they were going to add pencil support, they were going to toss it back up to that $499 beginning point for the regular iPad, but leaving it down there at that $329 price point is what I liked about this particular model.
Yeah, that was huge.
So the pencil support, obviously, it works on both of them. And I've used the Surface 2, I think is what it was. My in-laws had one. I don't think it was the 1. I think it was the 2. And I believe he also had the pencil. And it was fine. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I suppose I could have gotten used to it if that's what I was needing. If I needed it for work or whatever. I'm not an artist. The things that I do don't require a pen. The pencil for me is a nice to have. For my son with the school, it is actually becoming a part of that. We'll get into that a little bit. So it wouldn't that wouldn't have gotten me to purchase a Surface Pro. Forgetting all the names here, because the price at that point was still too high. I think at that point, this was going back a couple of years, it was like $800 or something like that. And yes, it was supposed to have been a full-blown computer, but it really was not, because it ran Surface RT instead of Windows 10.
Okay.
Or Windows RT, whatever they called it. And there were some serious drawbacks to that, not to mention battery issues and other things.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not comparing the old Surface.
Correct.
So the existing iPad, 2018 iPad at $329, and the iPad Pro, all three versions, by the way. There is a 9.7-inch iPad Pro. They do not necessarily make it anymore, but it is findable online. I do not know the price. There's a 10.5 and a 12.9. The one I have is a 12.9 that they released last year, alongside the 10.5, which was new. Another thing that applies to both are the apps. I'm not aware of any apps that only work on the Pro versus not working on a regular iPad with or without pencil support. So that is another beneficial thing. If there are specific applications that you want, even professional level applications, I don't know that there are any restrictions between high-end apps and the specific device that you have. Not to mention phones, separate thing because of screen size and whatnot, but as far as the devices go, iPads go. And then the Bluetooth accessories, both of them, because they have Bluetooth, whatever accessories that you may have already had that you would plan on buying. For instance, I have here included keyboards, and we'll get to the keyboard part a little bit later. But just any Bluetooth keyboard will work for these. And for that matter, I believe you could use the adapter and plug in a USB keyboard.
I've done that before.
If you wanted to. Yeah. So that's nice, especially if you have a specific keyboard that you like. There are some really nice keyboards out there, including some Bluetooth keyboards that are very nice. I'll get to the keyboard that I use once we get to the iPad Pro specific part of this. But that's really all that I had mentioned. I don't know if you know of any things that are both. There's plenty of things that really match both, your typical applications, but that all falls under the App Store. They both have very good cameras if you're going to use that gargantuan device to take pictures or videos. So the big screen, the very good camera quality. Not as good as it, like you're not going to get 4K 60 frames a second. I don't think out of this year's, the 2018.
I don't think
Could
so.
be wrong on that.
I think it's 1080p.
Yeah. But other than that, it's still a very good camera, and it takes very good picture quality and video quality in good lighting. That's a little caveat there. But that's the case with pretty well all phones and tablets nowadays, unless you go super high end. Do you have anything that kind of fits into the both that you know of that you might feel is worth mentioning here? That's really all I had listed for these.
No. I mean, obviously the standard things of if something's going to charge the Pro, it'll also charge the non-Pro. Cables, like you mentioned just briefly to some extent, the accessories, almost any accessory,
right,
almost will work on both sides. You have the pogo pins on the Pro, so the keyboard works. You don't have that on the non-Pro. So there's those differences. Those accessories won't work. But for the most part, any other, I could dare say iOS accessory, those will work across the board. What stands out to me, excuse me, the most is, what is different between the two. The first thing, and that's kind of why I really wanted to ask you about this, is when you look at the iPad Pro, the screen, the digitizer, and the glass are all fused together. Whereas in the iPad 2018 non-Pro, they're not fused. So on one hand, that's a good thing. So if you crack the screen, you don't necessarily need a new LCD. You can go buy the digitizer / glass from iFixit or some ghetto shop on eBay. Whereas on the Pro, you have to kind of the whole shebang. But how does that, if you've noticed any at all, how does that translate into the pencil usage? Being that there's now more separation when that pencil touches the glass, Do you notice that? Does that cause a problem? Or if he's just using it for handwriting, it doesn't matter anyways.
Right, and it doesn't. You can notice it. You can see the difference. Not so much, well, even if you set the pencil down and kind of tilt your head at an angle, you can tell that the pencil is resting above where the image is coming from. And that's actually one of the things that I have on the iPad Pro is the screen. You got a little bit more technical than I put. I put screen depth because I could not remember the laminating and all that mess. But that's what I meant by the screen depth here. So it's not noticeable in use.
What? Nothing. You're fine.
Depth, literally depth, like depth. It's not. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But I'm not an artist. I'm not zooming super tight and needing my pencil to be a pixel for pixel on what it is I'm messing with.
Right, right.
My son doesn't either. And so for just general use, that doesn't matter. Now there are other screen things that are nice that for some people actually make them sick. For some people they like. For me, I'm neutral on it, but I'll get that in a minute. Let me hit the 2018 stuff that is different from the Pro, and then we'll roll back into some screen things when we hit the iPad Pro. I just want to stick with my list because I'll get out of whack here. So the thing that I have on top is cost, because that is really the biggest thing to it all. The $329 versus, what is it, $6 something for the 10.5 inch, the least expensive version.
Could be. I don't know the prices, but yeah, it could be.
Right, and then you're going to jump up another $150 to $200, I think, for the 12.9 inch at the base. So there's a significant difference there. And for what you're getting, this almost kind of spills the beans on the overall review, if this is a review. For the vast majority of people, $329 and the power you're getting, and if you need the pencil, I mean, that's just that's a great price. That's the one to get, is what it boils down to.
Did you say $329 and you're getting the pencil?
No. And if you get the pencil.
Okay.
Because that is an additional $100.
Right.
However, I will say you can get it for $85 if you go to, if they have it in stock under in the Apple Store. If you get the app or go to the website under their refurbished.
Yeah.
My pencil got broken and I purchased a refurbished one for $85. It's still, not disrespecting the technology, but it's that's crazy pricing. However, I got kind of addicted to using it, and I started to do things without it, and I was like, oh, crikey, and so I ended up getting another one. Anyway, so cost is huge. I have accessories under the 2018 where that departs from the accessories for both. Is the 2018 form factor is the same as a few prior years, so you're going to find a huge amount of cases, especially, and keyboard cases and so forth that are going to fit it. It's going to be far easier to find. For instance, it took me a while to find a case that I liked for the iPad Pro 12.9, even though the form factor was the same as the previous version, the first gen. It still was very difficult for me to find something at this size that wasn't insanely bulky, like carrying around a suitcase every time you go somewhere. Yeah. So from that vantage point, accessories are going to be easy to come by. And then the size overall. So for most people, that 9.7 inch screen and then the form factor of it is super easy to hold. The weight of it is great. It's just a great size. When I grab my kids or my wife's, they all have the 9.7 now. It just feels, because I'm carrying around a small TV basically, it just feels great in the hand. And the what is it, 7.9 for the mini? That just almost feels too small.
Yeah.
It's nice for some things, but it's just, to me, feels a little too small. Some people love it. But for me, and I think the majority of people, that 9.7 is the sweet spot. Again, you can find a Pro at the 9.7 inch size, but it's not a new model. It is something that there's just overstock of that you would be buying, or a used one.
Yeah.
And then, did you have something to say?
Nope. I said yeah.
Okay. But the 10.5, because the screen versus the size of the body is adjusted a little bit, it is not too much larger than the 9.7 as far as the entire form factor goes. They're not going to fit the same cases. I don't mean that. But if you really like that 9.7, but you want the more power, the more memory, there's other things that I have here on the iPad Pro size. You get more memory in there, which helps if you're doing intense graphics type things, which you can do on the iPads. This is where my voice is starting to go. As well as video rendering, again, LumaFusion or some app like that. Pardon me. So there are some definite benefits going with the Pro model.
Yeah.
But that 10.5 is not too much larger than the 9.7. I've only not messed with it in the stores. I don't know anybody that has a 10.5. But the screen, even though it doesn't sound like it's much bigger, is noticeably larger. It's not to the point where you're getting, like with the 12.9, two full-size 9.7-inch screens side by side. If you do split screen, which you can, which is what it will be basically on the 12.9. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I got it. It's great. I do split screen all the time. But for the 10.5, it's just, they're a little bit smaller, but you still can get that good split screen. You can do the split screen in the 9.7 as well. But obviously, as a bigger screen, it's a bigger size of that. So size-wise, the iPad 2018 is great. But if you need the Pro, if you feel like you need the Pro, if you feel like you need that extra memory, a little bit of a speed boost, really, processor-wise, you have more speakers. I don't know how many people use the speakers on the iPads to the point where that's a deciding factor. But if you want to go with the Pro for the various reasons, but you're concerned about size, that 10.5 is really close to that 9.7. And then you go to the behemoth like the 12.9. It is, it's a big dude. It's a guy to carry around. Every time I seem to go places where people aren't used to seeing it, they're like, "What on earth is that?" That's just a gargantuan iPad, is what it is. So that's the difference. So and then what you called pogo pins earlier, it's called the Smart Connector. That is something on the Pro models, and so they have the Smart Keyboard, which is what I use. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's a keyboard. It works fine. I like the fact that it's always there and it's super thin, as opposed to a lot of keyboards for the iPads and so forth, where that makes you basically end up carrying around a laptop, is what it boils down to, size-wise. So it's super small. It's loud for the way I type. I guess I hit the keys pretty hard. And then I have a case that works well with it. Let me move the microphone out of the way and I'll show it here with us.
And is that the Apple case or no?
The case that I have here. No, because that was like $150. That was crazy talk. This is just a, I think, $20 iPad case Pro on Amazon. It's got the pencil holder at the top, which I like a lot. I had one of those cheap little elastic holders for the sleeve, maybe. That you could buy for $10, $15, whatever, somewhere. But it's just kind of ugly. If you have a device like this, you don't want to. You'd be a little vain, I guess, is what it boils down to. But also, if you sit it on a table, you get a little wobble happening there. So
okay.
So this is nice in that way, and it protects it a lot better. I think it does anyway. I'm not one to drop my iPad, but anyway. So that's kind of the big and small of it all. From my vantage point, I would say if you're looking to get one of these, unless you need more memory, unless you need good speakers, and good-ish, you really want to go to a Bluetooth speaker or something else if you really want good sound. But the speakers are definitely better than the 2018 version. The smaller keyboard with the like I mentioned, the Smart Keyboard. There are a few other. Logitech makes some. I'm not really sure who else makes anything with the Smart Connector, but that's something that's only in the Pro. If you need that, then you have the Pro. For really everybody else, unless you need a bigger screen size, that 2018 model is a great iPad to get. Yes, there is a difference in the screen because of the laminating and so forth, and you can notice it if you look at it. I had to look for it, but in regular use, when I grab my son's iPad, it doesn't jump out. It's just like the regular Air, I think, is
the Air.
The last one before this had that.
No,
I don't think the Air 2. I think the Air 2 is laminated. If I'm not mistaken.
I think the Air was laminated because I had the Air.
No. That's what I'm saying. I think. Well, that's what I mean. That they had the gap. I think the Air had that gap in it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think you did because
you looked it up,
I went from the Air. I didn't have the Air 2, and then I went to this one, which is the 2017 model. Does not support the pencil, and I notice a glare. That's one of the things that you get when you don't have the laminated glass and LCD together. It's because there's an air gap, and the air gap, I mean, it's minuscule. It's fractions of millimeters, but it does allow the refraction of light, so therefore you get that glare in there, and it becomes a pain. It's easily fixed. You move it, but still, yeah. So, but it was a little nicer to some extent on that one. I know for me, my biggest problem is price for the Pro, because it's. Whew, I see the price. And I'm like, man, I have a really good laptop at home, and it's a full-on laptop. It's a touch screen, 2-in-1. Although I don't use the touch screen and I don't fold it back as a 2-in-1, but still, it's at least there. It's a Core i7. It has 256 gigs of RAM. No, that'd be nice. 256 gig SSD.
It's a pricey laptop.
Right. And 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, and I paid $500 or $550 for it. Yeah, it was refurbished, sure, but even regular price was only $800 or something. The Pro, and that's a 13-inch screen, so it's roughly the same size. The Pro, same size screen, probably a better screen. I will say while 1080p, it's not the most beautiful screen on my new laptop. It's the Dell Inspiron 13, so it's not even the XPS. It's the one a little down from that. But it doesn't. The Pro doesn't come with a keyboard. It doesn't come with extra memory. I think what is the entry point? 64 or 128?
I think 64 is the current lowest that you can go.
Is it?
It jumps up to.
It jumps to 128.
But you can get up to 512.
You can get really high, but again, if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I'm going to want a laptop replacement. Let's ignore the fact that there are certain things that I have to have my laptop for. There's certain hoops at home I could probably jump through to still be able to do what I need to do, but still have a iPad Pro as my main machine. But it's still not a full-on OS. Part of the geek in me, while I like iOS for its limitations, if I'm going to want it to be my main machine, I'm not going to want to be limited by that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to want to have options. I despise Android on a tablet level. I don't so much mind their phones. They've come a long, long way. And in many ways, this is always an arguable topic, but in many ways have surpassed, in many ways are still behind, but whatever. There's a lot of great Android phones out there. So on a phone level, it doesn't really matter anymore. I'm locked on iOS because I spent a ton of money on iOS apps and accessories. But operating system-wise, the operating system on Android has gotten really good. But their tablets are rubbish. I can't think of a good tablet. I can think of a couple tablets that look good. But when you go to use them, it's just like, it's too much silliness. And that's my personal opinion. On a phone, though, I don't want too many options. I don't want to be able to break it. I don't care if I break the tablet. I mean, fixable break, not like, break the screen. But the size, I do love the size. I love the fact that if you're looking at a PDF as an example on screen and it's filling the screen, it's roughly the same size as a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So therefore it looks like a printed copy, but clearer, sharper. But that price, man. So I won't be getting probably either anytime soon. Maybe next year or this year when they come out with a new one and the old ones start to hit the sale bin. But even the sale price, I mean, goodness, when you have to put something that's $700 on sale, what is it, $500? That's still, That's still pretty pricey. There apparently have been some good deals at like a Target or Walmart or whatever else. But for now, they why'd you hit repeat? I don't have the money, so it doesn't matter. It can be in a sale for any great price. I don't have the money, and that's kind of why I wanted to pick your brain. In the long and the short of it, if you had to do it all over again with the iPad 2018 model and the iPad Pro, and you didn't have any of them yet, but you knew what you know now, would you still buy the Pro?
Yes, because I didn't, this year, had my son not had a different kind of need, which kind of, I don't know, pushed us that direction is the right way to say it, but I didn't buy it for myself. So that's kind of a clarifying mark there. When I bought the iPad Pro, I bought it as a laptop replacement for me, because I have this 2011 MacBook Pro. Works fine, but you get to that old, I'm no longer updating the operating system in this just because I don't want it to get to the point where that slows it down. You never know when there's going to be some type of hardware failure on this once you get to this point. It still works great currently. There definitely are the limitations like you mentioned on the iPad Pro, but for me, that's why I was willing to spend the money. It's like, okay, am I going to spend X amount of dollars on a laptop, knowing I'm not going to get another MacBook, because these things, the new ones that were out at the time when I got the iPad, I wasn't interested in spending $2,700 or $1,700. Didn't have it, first of all, and didn't want to spend $1,700 on what was out at the time. I wouldn't buy a current version of the MacBook Pros. I don't think they're worth that money. There's too many problems, especially. And then I didn't want a Windows computer because of all the issues that come with Windows computers. I don't enjoy using a Windows computer. I guess for me, Windows computers are I'm opening it up. I have a task to do. That's because I do it at work. Windows 7 at work, Windows 10 here at home. When I load up this computer, it's because I've got something I need to do. It's not just because I want to enjoy, yes, I can use this. I've got a 30-inch TV right here, basically as a monitor. It'd be great for YouTube or Netflix or whatever if I were going to use it that way. But the reason why I got this was a laptop replacement. So with that in mind, yes, I would definitely go Pro again. And then, the finances, of course, plays a huge part when you go this much money. Last year, we were in a better spot to the point where I could do this. Right now, it wouldn't be sensible for me to do it because of our situation. But we're not in the poorhouse. But, I mean, it's just, this is, like you mentioned, it's a lot of money. I would not go the route of the iPad that my son has, the 2018. I would just have gotten, if I needed an iPad, it would be fine. But it wouldn't be like this. Last year, it was like, I feel like I need to get another laptop or another computing device. I'm going to try this right out. And I've been happy with it. Yes, it's not a full-blown laptop. There's definitely some drawbacks to it. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I would do it again, pending funds.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool.
Got about a minute left for thoughts.
No, I think that's good. We covered all the bases, answered the questions that I had, and that's good. On my side, I'm always looking at how to make some changes to my setup here, because I'm spanning probably 7 or 8 feet linearly this direction. Not too much left to right, because I just got the microphone off. Everything else is in front of me. But I'd like to kind of condense it. The anomaly is my phone giving off some interference into the microphone. I think it's because of the cracked screen. That's roughly when it happened. I might be getting an older phone, 5S, coming up soon, as we recycle phones inside the house and family. So I might start using that with you. It's not broken. It's not damaged. Maybe that one won't cause the interference, because it used to sit right on top of the camera and everything was fine, but then I cracked that screen. It's a tiny crack. It's only about a 1/2 inch long, and it doesn't go all the way through. It's just that top layer. But ever since that happened, I can hear this boom, 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 boom in the audio. And this isn't a EDM track. So
10 seconds.
10 seconds. All right. Well, that's good. Episode 31 in the can. That's the way we got to abrupt everything. I like it. Anything else to close? No? That was 10 seconds?